all of that buying into that phase there, didn't they? So the dealers are still short. So if the dealers are still absorbing, I'm expecting the price to go back down and find me a lean. And I'm now thinking 10 o'clock seems to fit the bill, right? I'm now thinking to myself, 10 o'clock seems like a reasonable proposition for me to start buying into this. So I've already got my timing. I've got my reasoning. I've got my thoughts. I've already recognized why this would be the perfect opportunity in terms of pure structural advantage that I've got on my trade. I've already seen level 2 buying in the background against very weak selling. So let's carry on and see if that shows up at any stage. Nope. Nope. Ah, wait a second. What's this bad boy here? Starting to show something. It's not where I want it, but at least it's starting to show up. Ah, wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. What the hell's happening here, guys? What the hell is even that? Right? Now we're starting to see something that we're interested in. Now we're starting to see something that we can lean against. Now we've got our trade. Now Peter's got his trade, right, Peter? Now Peter's got his trade. He can say, right, I've got some Voltics to lean against. I'm putting my buy stop in. It's time for me to get ill. Right there. Hard stop. Not at the bottom edge, below the bottom edge. It's a hard stop. It's not there for it's not there to get you taken out. It's there in case you drop dead in during this trade. It's there for protection. It's not ever to be taken. Your job is to get into this trade and now work the bid. What happens? You've just got into a trade. It's just triggered your buy order. You are in it. What happens next? The euro dollar explodes off your buy trade as if you didn't even blink. Look at that, guys. Look at that trade. And all of a sudden, within half an hour, your morning's finished. You've already just done your trade right there. You've waited for that trade to show up. Within half an hour, you've just done your trade. And the market just exploded north out of that area. And you start looking at prior swing highs, of course. You start looking at this half-back trade here, and you start watching this process here at 12 o'clock noon, and you start saying, right, I think it's probably going to reach a 12 o'clock high. That's where I'm expecting it to run into some stoppages, and you can see that the dealers are starting to get short into those high prints. You start recognizing the first level 2 right here, and you say, right, well, that's now through the half-back trade. I am going to close off my long position. That's it, right there. Close off my long position. Your trade is finished. And sure enough, that position drops off the position at that stage. It goes for one extra higher high, and that's that move higher here. You can see on that candle. It goes through that phase, and obviously it carries on through, but it does eventually then just drop off eventually from that trade. Now, I'm not saying that you'd have taken this as a sell trade. I'm saying that you'd have taken profits here. You'd have closed off at least some of your trade in those areas because you've just came into the halfback. You'd expect to see some profit taking during that period. But obviously the trade is still bullish. You can see that from the book. You can see that from the deltas. The trade is still bullish. The price eventually goes higher. You're not getting anything that's telling you to sell this. So obviously if you wanted to reconnect with that trade, there's no danger in reconnecting, by the way. If you want to reconnect with a trade that you've just closed out, all you have to do is find another Voltic to lean against and try it all over again. So a Voltic to lean against, you can see it's right there. There it is, guys. There's a Voltic to lean against right there, and you say, right, I'm just going to lean against that bad boy right there. And if it's a momentum trade, because it's not into a low price, you can afford to put your stops in at a very, very tight break-even position here. Scratch the trade. And obviously you're back in a buy trade that then explodes through the next phase of the liquidity, and you start making the gains on the next leg higher. And that gain that you make on that trade is another big winning opportunity. And there's the deal. There's your deal into a top edge that eventually you can see the book starts selling, the delta starts absorbing, and that ends up being another exit, possibly a reversal trade up at that price. Structure. Comes into big liquidity, big book buying liquidity here. The price bounces at least temporarily before it starts to sell back off again. but at least you're starting to recognize stuff. At least you're starting to recognize stuff, guys. At least you're starting to recognize the key cornerstones of every single thing that happens. You're not trying to explain this at this stage. If you can't see it, there's no point in trying to explain something if you don't know what we're trying to explain. So the next step of this whole process in re-engineering, the next step is to then try and explain why it happens, not the fact that it did happen. The whole point about trading is to then explain why this trade took place. If we can explain why these trades take place, you can start getting ready for them. But until you know structure, until you recognize the amazingness of structures, trying to explain why they're there is kind of pointless, because you're trying to explain something that people don't even have a basic grasp of. Imagine somebody that doesn't even know about charts or the markets. They don't know what the euro dollar is. And you're trying to explain because the 10 spread is now bullish and because the carry trade is bullish and the pension funds are buying. You're like, I don't know what the euro dollar is. What are you telling me this for? Doesn't make any sense to that person, does it? So you've got to get that structural concept right. You've got to be clear in your own mind about the structural narrative that's unfolding on that screen before you start trying to explain why it's unfolding on that screen. It's a stepping process, coming back again to Peter's question, about just making sure you get these ideas right and about the experience. It looks easy was Peter's question. You make it look easy. That's because it is. But it takes a lot of time to make it look easy. Have you ever tried to throw a three-pointer from the three-point line, guys? You look at Michael Jordan throwing three-pointers, and you say, these guys make it look easy. They make it look easy dribbling the ball, and they'll make it look easy hitting a base. Have you ever tried to hit a baseball against a professional pitcher, guys? Honestly, you ever tried to hit a baseball against a professional pitcher? Forget about it, right? You can't even swing the bat fast enough, and the ball's already in the pit, the back of the. You know what I mean? It's too fast. But if you practice, and you practice, and you practice, you'll get faster at hitting it. You'll get faster at recognizing it. You'll get faster at moving. It's just the same as every other thing. It's just the same as anything else, guys. Practice. And it's suddenly the whole thing slows down. You remember the film where they're the assassins? And I think it's Keanu Reeves has to put his hand into, I don't know if it is, but maybe it is. He has to put his hand into the weaving machine. And it gets faster. And he doesn't see it, and he doesn't see it, and he doesn't see it, and he keeps getting his hands jammed and stuck and snapped at. But slowly but surely, he sees it slowing down, and suddenly it becomes almost so slow that he can just put his hand in and pick it out. The machine hasn't slowed down, but because of the brain's ability to learn something, the process is slowing down, the same way as the process to change gears. Whilst looking in the mirror, whilst checking your indicators, whilst driving, whilst learning to pull your foot off the accelerator. The same process suddenly becomes a lot slower. It's not actually slower. It's just because your knowledge is slowing the process right down that you're able to accomplish it. Well, trading's exactly the same. The exposure you get from doing the exercises, not just listening to me, not just copying lines, but the process you get from doing the exercises gives you a very, very good idea that that process will slow the whole process of trading down. And as you slow the whole process of trading down, suddenly magic starts to happen on the screens, right?